Hey y'all, it's Joefer, the cranky old gay guy, and today we're going to be talking about cranky days, because today is one of those days. That's right, I have been cranky at least 3 times this morning over 3 different situations, and I would like to discuss those with you. So how many of you have had your vaccinations, and how many of you are against vaccinations? Well, regardless, I had a vaccination this morning, just a basic flu vaccine. I had to schedule it online. When I went to the doctor in September or early October, late September, they didn't have the flu vaccine. It only went to hospitals and pharmacies. So they were going to give me a call when they get it in so I could come in. Well, they haven't called. Evidently, they still don't have it. I talked to a receptionist there last week. Not yet. Well, flu season is upon us. So I went online. Well, I went to Safeway and they said you have to schedule online. So I went to the Safeway pharmacy for my vaccination, and I did schedule it 2 days ago for this morning at 10 o'clock. And I got there 20 minutes early, and I went and waited at the counter until he came over and said, "Is your name Richard?" And it's like, "No." And I told him my name and date of birth. He goes, "Yeah, I don't have you on the list." And I said, "Well, I have a confirmation email." So I pulled it up and I showed him, and he goes, "Oh yeah, the number next to that Safeway, that's not us." And I said, "What do you mean it's not you?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's the one on Martin Luther King." And it's like, "But I scheduled with this one." And he said, "Well, in the system it says that you're at the other store." I said, "Do you have an opening at 10?" He goes, "No, I've got someone else coming in. Sorry." So I had to go out and get in my car in the rain and the cold. And I had to drive like a bat out of hell to get to the other Safeway so I wouldn't miss my 10 a.m. appointment. I got there. There are 2 people behind the counter. The pharmacy I was at earlier, the other Safeway, has 4 people. This one had someone running the register and a pharmacist. And that was it. And the pharmacist did not seem like she wanted to be there. She was very, "Yeah, I'll be with you in a minute." Barely opened her eyes. Eventually she comes over and she goes, "So what kind of vaccine do you want?" And I said, "Well, I filled out the form online and it tells you I'm just getting 2 of them." And she goes, "Yeah, when was your last one of this?" And I said, "It was RSV, or excuse me, it was Shingrix, which is so as you get older, if you get shingles, it can be debilitating, I guess." I said, "I don't think I've had it since like 2019. And she goes, "Let me see. What's your birth date? And what's this? What's that?" And she looked me up and she goes, "Yeah, you had this in 2019 and 2021. And I said, "Well, do I need it now?" She goes, "I think you need a flu shot." And I said, "Okay." She goes, "Why did you want the Shingrix shot?" And I said, "Well, I didn't. But when I was filling out the form, it kept quizzing me saying, 'You haven't had this yet. You need this. You need this.' So I just marked it because it said I needed it." She goes, "Yeah, you need a flu shot." So she never explained it, and she never opened her eyes. Well, her eyes were like this the whole time. Yeah. So this took about 7 minutes of my interaction with her. And then she handed me a clipboard and said, "This is the stuff you filled out online. Read it, sign it, date it." So I did. I handed it back to her. And right next to the pharmacy, there's a door in the pharmacy behind the counter that goes into a waiting room that has like 6 chairs where if you're waiting for vaccinations, you can go sit. And that way you're not in the store. She said, "Go over and stand on aisle 5 and someone will be with you shortly." So it's like, wow, that's great. Aisle 5 isn't even the aisle that is adjacent to the waiting room. But I went over there, and there was a waiting chair outside of the waiting room that had strawberry jam and frosting all over the seat, so you couldn't sit in it. The aisles were crowded with people stocking freight. So I went over and I stood in aisle 5 as requested, and then had to immediately move when a guy came through with a beverage cart, and he was stacking an end cap, overstacking an end cap with beverages and colas and soft drinks of all sorts. And that is near the like the freezer section. So cold wind was blowing. Oh, it was miserable standing there. And I had to wait there 10 minutes. And meanwhile, the line at the register had disappeared, and now all those people had moved over to the vaccination line and were waiting to be checked in. And it was just a really, really slow system. And anyway, I waited 10 minutes, and eventually I saw the light in the waiting room go on. I looked in there, and it was the pharmacist with the sleepy eyes. And she was in there 3 or 4 minutes, turning on buttons and pushing codes. And then she comes over and she opens the door and she goes, come on, go sit down. So I went over to a bench. She goes, no, in here. And there's a private room for the shots. So I went in there, and she goes, so what's your name? What's your birthday? And I told her again. And she said, so you're here for a flu shot, right? And I thought, wow, I just talked to you about this. And I watched you get the flu vaccine out of the cabinet it was in, the chiller, whatever, and put my name and coded number right on it. So you know I'm here for a flu shot, okay? I know you have to ask as part of, normally when a patient changes hands in a medical facility, whoever is taking over has to ask name, birth date, because they want to make sure that they're treating the right patient. But she's the only one I talked to, and she's the one that filled out the form, and she's the one that printed the sticker. She's the one that pulled the medication, the vaccination, or the vaccine. She's the one that had it loaded up in the syringe. So she goes, and which arm did you want? That's the third time she asked me which arm I wanted since I arrived at the store. And also online, it tells you what arm I wanted it in. I said the left. So I'm cranky now, okay? And I'm trying to be polite though, because the customer service in this particular store is less than 50% what it is in the other Safeway I was at. And that's one of the reasons I don't go to this Safeway. They're equal distance from my house, but it's not nearly as cordial as the other one. Yes, they both have armed guards at the door, the grocery entrance. That's just the way Safeways work here in Portland, because there always is something going on. And it's been that way since the 90s. I know the downtown Safeway used to be the only one that had armed guards, and then all of them got them. Anyhow, she comes over and look at that, see, look at that. And she gave me a Band-Aid. She didn't ask about a bandage because she knows if she looked at my chart that I have a latex issue. This isn't really soft skin, but if this had been put on, like a neck or a torso, it would have blistered the skin. And that's just what Band-Aids do to me. And adhesive tape is the same way. Up here, it's not quite as bad. It might leave a mark, it might not, but it's not going to blister and itch like other places do. Anyhow, she pinches my skin, and then I hear this, like there was air in the cylinder, the syringe. She goes, okay, you're all done. I didn't even feel it go in. But, I've given injections before, and they're not supposed to make that noise because what that is air being pushed out. So I'm hoping that she didn't inject air into me. If she did, I haven't felt anything, and it was, it's been about 2.5 hours since I got that shot. Okay, so now my plan was to get my vaccination, go to the chiropractor. I need to go to the chiropractor, and then go to the gym. Well, I called the chiropractor to make sure that the chiropractor is open today. It's the Joint Chiropractic. You pay a monthly fee, you get 4 visits a month, and you don't have to schedule, it's a walk-in clinic. Well, they closed 3 of them. I went to one in the Hollywood district, it closed. I went to the one in the Goat Blocks in Southeast Portland, it closed. I went to the one in North Portland, it closed. And now I have to go downtown, across the river, into an up-and-coming gentrification area. And that's the only one that's open. They have one doctor there. And he's never there. For the last 2.5, 3 weeks, he's not there. I call in and they'll say, oh, well, he's out and we'll have someone here on Saturday. It's like, well, I can't do it on Saturday. I need to come during the week. Oh, well, you could go to our clinic out in Hillsborough or Beaverton or drive out to Wood Village. All of these are great distances from my home. I mean, it's a jaunt and a freeway jaunt just to get to the clinic that she's talking about, that there's no doctor at. And to go elsewhere is even worse. But my back needed an adjustment. So I drove to East Vancouver up in Washington because I have been there. When I was up there off and on for a week or two, I was hitting that clinic and they had like 4 doctors and they're all really good. I mean, they can diagnose you, they pop your back, pop your legs, whatever. And they're really good at it, which I wish that Portland would get something like that. I've had good doctors in the past, but after 3 or 4 months, they jump ship and they bring in somebody else. So I drove up there and I went in, and what do you know, there's 5 people waiting to be treated, and they have 2 doctors that day instead of the 4. I've only been in there when there's 4 and it drops to 3 because one's replacing the other. So they never have more than like 3 on duty at one time. But they have 4 tables. So 2 of the tables are full and there's 5 people waiting. So it took about 25 minutes for a doctor to see me. And now it's just eating up the day. And I'm cranky. But I'm not cranky at the people up there because I understand it's busy. The director of the clinic is the one that worked on me today. And she told me that in the region, the Northwest region, theirs is the busiest clinic. Because I asked how you can keep doctors here. And she said, well, when it's a busier clinic, there's more incentives, meaning they get paid more. And as a director, she gets paid more than she would in private practice. And that's why she doesn't jump ship and go to private practice. And I said, well, can't you send some of your doctors like down to Oregon, to Portland, and fill in for this sick doctor? And she said no, because they aren't licensed in Oregon. And Oregon has a more stringent licensing procedure than they do in Washington. So they can't cross borders, even though technically it was about 17 miles, maybe 20 miles. But by the way, that's not a 20-minute drive. It's much longer than that. So yeah, she explained that to me, and it irks me and it makes me very cranky. And I get in the car and I have this red triangle of death light that keeps coming on my dashboard. It has been for 3 days, and then it disappears. And it usually happens when I turn a corner or when I push on the brakes, unless I do it super, super gently and the car kind of rolls to a stop, then nothing. But if I actually push down on the brake, there's nothing until the car actually stops, and then I get this beep, and the light went on and it didn't go off. So normally I would just check everything when I get home. But since I'm 20 miles from home, I don't want to drive back. So I find a auto parts store, because in East Vancouver, it is the land of strip malls. They are everywhere. And I went in and I imagined things that it could be, which would be brake fluid, oil. The worst one, I looked it up online, and the worst one was that your water pump's going out, which that's not happening. I had the water pump replaced maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I went in and I bought some motor oil because it's due for an oil change anyway. So I figured it might be low. And the little oil light has only come on in the car once, and it's when I was changing the oil. Yet I looked in the manual, it says that, the oil light will come on when you're even a quart low. Well, it's never come on. And when I looked it up online today, when I was at the auto parts store before I went in, I looked it up, and it said that this warning light can come on if your oil is low. And it's like, well, why doesn't the low oil light come on? Because when I did the dipstick today, that thing was low. I mean, it needed probably 4 quarts to fill it all the way up. I only bought 2, and that was sufficient. So I had overestimated how much I was going to need. And I did that because I know I'm going to get the oil changed in the next week, within a week. So I don't want to just buy oil, just have it all flushed away. It's a waste of money. Because oil, believe it or not, for a quart of oil, The cheapest they have is $6.49 plus tax. And taxes are something that make me cranky too, because we don't have taxes in Oregon, not on sales. But in Washington, it's 8 cents on the dollar. No, it's more than that. What is it? Because it was over $17 for two things. Or no, $17, 12, 13. It was, oh, what was it? I don't remember. It was almost $1 or more. It doesn't matter. I was cranky anyway. So I got the crank from the vaccination delays. Why does a corporation run themselves like that and so slow and so, I won't say discourteous, because it's not like she was unkind. She just wasn't overly helpful, the pharmacist. She was polite when she gave me the shot. Then her eyes were still kind of closed, but she wasn't mean or bitter. But when I was with her at the counter initially, she had this really, I don't even want to be here attitude. And given maybe she's working long hours and maybe she's the only one there, I don't know. I haven't been in that store in 3 or 4 weeks, so I don't know. The chiropractic thing, I think I actually talked about that in a previous video, how the joint has let me down a number of times. But they are much more affordable than going to a private clinic, because insurance doesn't cover chiropractic, the insurance I have. And what happens is when you go to a chiropractor, because this has happened, I had a chiropractor in the past that would let you pay $60 flat fee and avoid all the paperwork, because he said, we have to spend 2 hours on insurance paperwork just to put this bill in. So if you want to just pay cash, that's what we'll do, which is better. However, that $60 will not go as a copay or anything on future visits. But the one time I said, well, the HR person specifically told me that this is covered by insurance. So I went and ran it through, and I got a bill for $165 for that one visit. And I said, what's this? I went back in and I asked him. He said, well, every time there's a diagnosis, or we touch you, or we use this on you, or we do this adjustment, each one has a different billing code, and they bill insurance for every one of those things. So one visit, they might do 3 things. The next visit, they might do 9. And they adjusted my neck, my back, he popped my ankles, he used this little sparky, or a little thing that goes tick, 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 tick. It's like a little spring gun, and they push on your things, your muscles, before they adjust you. And that added up to a lot of money, almost $300 for one visit. And they submit that to insurance, and then like 60 to 90 days later, I get a bill for this 130 or 160, whatever I just told you. It was a lot of money. And because insurance only pays like 50% or 40% of what is billed to them. So it's much cheaper for me at the time just to go in and pay cash. Well, that insurance was, that was a long time ago. It was 2008, so that was a long time ago. And I have a different insurance now, and chiropractic's not covered. So that's why I go to the joint. But it irks me the way that they run their business, and their business model sucks. And they could do the same thing for clients or patients and keep the cost low if they would just revise, not even what they're paying their doctors. They need to revise their whole rental agreement. They have this thing where they go in and they always pick a brand new building, that's thousands of dollars more than and then they renovate it, of course, to make it look like their clinic. But they could find an old storefront, and believe me, Portland has many, 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 and many are in walking neighborhoods, like they're doing when they put them in. They put it in these new apartment complexes on a busy street with a lot of street traffic. Well, you could do that in some of the older neighborhoods as well. There's a lot of street traffic, and sometimes there's even parking. And that would attract a lot more clientele, I think. People want to go somewhere less congested. They don't want to drive in heavy traffic to get to a doctor that's going to make you feel good. When you could drive in the urban area on, a platted grid system where it's not rush, 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 freeway. They could sign a lease on one of those buildings and they could still be in business. Okay, so that sent me up there. And then I was cranky over the car issue. And that's how my day's been going. and I hope my day gets better. It is a Friday. Am I going out? Well, I went out last night. It was naked pool last night, and I did wear that fur coat because it was freaking cold. But it only hits you at the knees, so my knees and lower legs, they were pretty chilly. And no one really stripped down until like 9:30 or 10. A group of people came in and stripped down, and then pretty much more did. But it certainly wasn't a fun, warm atmosphere as it's been in the past. And that has to do with our stinktacular weather that we're having. It's cold, it's windy, it's rainy, it's absolute misery. And what I really need is a house in Palm Springs that I could just go down and live 5 months out of the year and then come back here for the spring and summer. So any of you in Palm Springs who, have something affordable, let me know. All right, that's all I'm going to give you today because I think I gave enough, and you're probably tired of me, and you're probably zoned out because we've already hit the 20-minute mark. And, retention with these things, I know some of you watch all of them because of the things you say in comments, but if you look at the analytics, most people don't make it past 2 or 3 minutes of any video, regardless of what it is, and regardless of anyone else's channel. So that's just a thing. I think people, when they scroll on the phone, they just jump around. But here I'm going on again and again and again. So I will see you all tomorrow on Saturday. I hope you all have a wonderful Friday evening. And thanks for listening. I appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Joefer woke up on the wrong side of dawn. Cranky old gay guy with a scowl on. Had to get that flu shot, waiting in a long queue. Tick-tock, tick-tock, what else is new? Well, Joefer's day is a cranky parade, with every step another tirade. From flu shots to car trouble, it's all going wrong. But he'll push through, singing his cranky old song. Drove way out to the burbs in another state. On his city's chiropractor, he just couldn't wait. Every mile of road, he cursed the delay, while the world's so intent on spoiling his day. Oh, Joefer's day is a cranky parade, with every step another tirade. From flu shots to car trouble, it's all going wrong. But he'll push through, singing his cranky old song. Red triangle of death, the car's throwing a fit. Had to stop for oil, can you believe it? Rain pouring down, making a long trip home. Joefer's cranky day